Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this GGP-Connect webinar. My name is Anne Gauthier. I'm Director of the Generation and Gender Program, and I'm joined here on the screen by Lynn Rouvroy, who is member of the GGP team in the Netherlands, and Monika Mynarska, who is our speaker today from Poland. We are delighted to have a presentation today about the new follow-up questionnaire. That's been really hard work done by the questionnaire task force that Monika will be presenting in a second. So we're really pleased about to share that with the GGP community. And just to remind you of how this will work, Monika will make a presentation for about 20-25 minutes. During that time, you can ask your question using the Q&A. And if not, keep them for the end. And then once after Monika's presentation, we will have a session or time for the questions. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor to Monika for this presentation. Monika.
Thank you, Anne. Hello, everyone. Okay, let me just share the presentation with you. Is it all visible? Can you?
No. Yes, now it is. Thank you.
All right, don't scare me. And is it changing? All right, thank you, Lynn. All right. Oh, indeed, dear colleagues, it is indeed my great pleasure to share with you today a quite brief, I will try to be brief, summary of the work that the GGP Questionnaire Task Force conducted over the last year. This is the work related to the revisions of the follow-up, so Wave 2 questionnaire. And let me start with saying that part of this material was presented at the GGP Consortium Board meeting that was held in October. So some of you will probably find some of this material familiar. However, there are parts of this presentation that are new. So I actually hope that it will trigger some nice discussion afterwards. So, okay, as said, the new questionnaire task force that I have the pleasure and honor to represent today commenced their work a little bit more than a year ago. The task force consists now of Detlef Luc, Zuzana Mackay, Lauren Toulemont, and myself. And I believe all the remaining members of the task force are now in the audience with us. We also benefited greatly from the support of the Central Hub, Olga Grunwald, and also assisted by two younger colleagues. And our mandate, the mandate of this new questionnaire task force, was to revise the GGS follow-up questionnaire. Yeah, you will also have the occasion to see the bottom of my cat during the presentation, hopefully not too often. So basically our mandate has been to revise the GGS follow-up questionnaire. The baseline questionnaire was revised before, so now the work had to be done on the follow-up questionnaire. And as we started this work, we actually reviewed the baseline questionnaire, and we also held consultations with the GGP Consortium Board members. It was about a year ago. And in these consultations and in these revisions, it became apparent that, of course, it is of paramount importance to focus on the GGP spirit, on central GGS topics, to make sure that we update the key family-related information at Wave 2. But at the same time, we also need to make the questionnaire as brief and simple as possible. Seems mission impossible, but this had to be done mainly because of the pandemic, post-pandemic reality. COVID really pushed GGS to web, and now CAWI becomes a dominant mode of data collection. And but also we had to make it shorter because GGS, as any other study, as any other survey, needs some innovation. It needs to open more to new items, to modules maybe suggested by the users. So we actually also needed to make space for that. And with this, let me stress that it was not the questionnaire task force mandate to invent new content. We will have the call for module for that. We might actually even rephrase our mandate, that our mandate was actually really to shorten the questionnaire. And this is how we approached our task. We actually started our work with kind of ranking all the baseline questionnaire items into 3 priority groups. This allowed us to basically just have a rough idea of what items are really like to identify the items that are really the core of the GGS, but also to identify the items that clearly do not need to be repeated at wave 1, such as historical data on childhood, on biological parents, but also some items that are usually used only as the predictors at wave 1, or items that were for various reasons problematic. I will give some examples as we move along of such items, but in general, we kind of grouped all the items into these 3 categories. And we realized that removing just the priority 3 items, of course, would shorten the questionnaire, but then we would have no space for new items, really. This is just a reminder. This is the reminder based on the presentation from the Central Hub that was in May, how long the baseline questionnaire is. And if we remove the priority 3 items, we would probably save 25–30%. But then adding some new modules, some new questions would basically bring us back almost to square one. We could save maybe 10 minutes of the questionnaire, but it would not really make the questionnaire nicer for the CAWI, for the online environment. So basically what we decided to do, we decided to take a very radical approach, and we decided to see what happens if we just keep those items that we ranked as priority 1. So those that we really identified as the core, the soul and heart of the GGS, so to speak. And with this approach, we managed to cut the questionnaire by half. Basically, the priority 1 items, they covered roughly slightly under the 50% of the baseline questionnaire. And this first draft, the first outcome of this exercise was presented to the consortium board, to the GGP consortium board just a month ago. So the information I'm sharing here is really very fresh. And the consortium board members also got back to us with some feedback, with some comments. Once again, we are very grateful for all the received comments and feedback. And in the remaining, hopefully 15 minutes of my presentation, I will just give you a quick tour through the outcome of all this work. I will first give you a few very general comments on life histories update, how we update the life histories in the wave 2 on the removed items. Then I will give an overview of the current structure of the follow-up questionnaire, and I will just conclude as usual with next steps and plans ahead. All right, so first, to start with the key element of the GGS, which are life histories, we of course in the follow-up questionnaire, we follow the baseline in focusing on family biographies. In the follow-up questionnaire, we cover, of course, the update of the partnership histories on all the children information. As for the partnership histories, we need to update all the information, of course. So we start from asking a respondent to recall their situation at wave 1 and basically ask what happened since then. We follow the current baseline as for the content, in the sense that we collect all dates information related to any cohabiting or marital relationship that happened, started, ended, lasted during the period between the waves. The living apart together relationships are only covered at the point of the wave 1 and wave 2. So precisely the same logic. The living apart together information are only collected in the cross-sectional manner. As for the fertility history and children, here we unfortunately had to change the approach a little bit. In the wave 1, information on fertility history were collected along with partnership histories. So for each partnership, the respondent was asked whether they had a child together with this partner. However, we do not have the complete relationship histories at wave 2. Yet we need to recollect all the information on all children, not only on those born between the waves, to ask about any changes in living arrangements, care arrangements, on frequency of contact, and so forth. So we had to recollect all the information. We have to recollect all the information on children. Thus, we decided to change approach here a little bit, and we will collect the information. We suggest to collect this information child by child, so to speak. So in the follow-up, the respondent will be asked to list all biological, then adopted children, as well as stepchildren. But we will only focus on the ongoing current relationship. And additionally, just to allow respondents to report on any stepchildren from previous relationships. So basically all the information that were already collected at wave 1, we will have one general item asked: are there any other children that you raised apart from those that you've already listed? So a little bit different approach, but unfortunately there is we believe there is no better option to do it. As for the histories, as for the life histories in the sphere of education, employment, and migration, they are much less detailed. Education, we just update information asking whether the respondent upgraded their education, and if so, when it happened. For employment, and this was a very difficult decision made after the consultations with the consortium board member last year, it was decided that full employment histories will not be collected. We, of course, do ask about the economic activity at wave 2 and since when this activity is going on. Also, to capture any turbulences between the waves. We ask whether the respondent experienced any periods of unemployment, breaks in work related to parental responsibilities or health issues in the time since wave 1. Of course, also for those who are employed at wave 2, we collect various information on their job characteristics. So there is a lot of cross-sectional information repeated from wave 1. We just do not collect the historical data on employment. And finally, as for the migration histories, migration data, we update information on place of residence. And if a person lives under the new address, we ask when they moved, why they moved, and the reason for moving include now an explicit category related to living parental home. I will come back to the issue of living parental home a little bit later. As for the elements that we skipped in the follow-up that were ranked as priority free, as already mentioned, of course, all the historical, so time constant information are now skipped, but also in the fertility sections, in this fertility section, the item related to the theory of planned behavior were removed. Well, these items inspired lots of research in the past, but they still remained quite difficult to our respondents, and especially in the online setting, without the interviewer to help to guide the respondents through them. And for that reasons, the TPB items were made optional already at the baseline questionnaire. And actually these items were skipped in some countries. Consequently, they were really strong candidates for our priority free group. The lack of these items at wave 2 is a little less painful because they are usually used as predictors of intentions at wave 1 or predictors of realization of intention by wave 2. And of course, the items on fertility intentions are there. So not just the items on the TPB itself is missing on the attitudes controlled, behavioral control, and subjective norms. Another difficult decision was to skip items on attitudes. Based on the round 1 of GGS, we could see that attitudinal variables show little change over 3-year time between the 2 waves. So it might actually be much more useful to bring them back at wave 3. Moreover, also in the case of attitudes, it seems most important to measure attitudes at wave 1, so we can predict people's behavior based on the measured attitudes. We also skipped some items related to well-being, health, income, material situation, but just to be very clear, it is not that we skipped the whole topic or the whole section. We always tried to keep a couple of central items for each concept, for each topic. But there are a lot of things that are slimmed at the moment. With a substantial number of items removed, we actually also had to reorganize the sections a little bit. We know it is not ideal to change the order of some of the items in the follow-up, but now some items would be simply orphaned. They would just appear out of blue in the course of the interview. And this rearrangement simply allowed us to build more coherent sections, hopefully also easier for the researchers to work with. And I will not go through all the questions, of course, but I do want to give you a rather detailed overview of information that is covered. So all of you can really rest assured that the key information is there, that even though the questionnaire is slimmed, is shortened substantially, all the main information is still there. In this overview, you will see a few information in orange. These are the topics that Questionnaire Task Force actually skipped. But in the recent follow-up, in the recent consultation with the GGP Consortium Board, these items were listed by our colleagues as too important to be deleted. So the Questionnaire Task Force is now going to verify whether it is feasible to bring them all back. Of course, any further welcomes will be very welcome in this respect. As said, I will just go relatively quickly through this overview. The presentation will be, of course, available online. I will be happy to share the slides with you. And also very soon, we hope to share the whole questionnaire with all of you. But just to give you the overview, we start, no surprise, with the basic demographic information. We follow with the information on residence and migration, as already mentioned, any changes in the migration, in the accommodation status, so to speak. We, of course, update the union histories, the partnership histories. Then we collect information on children. As said, we go child by child. We ask about the living arrangements, the care arrangements if the parents are no longer together, about the contacts with children and so forth. We also then ask about the division of tasks in the household. That section also includes questions on the childcare arrangements, including receiving some help from external sources. And this section is then covered by the fertility and reproductive health section, which includes, of course, questions on fertility intentions, on contraceptives, on fecundity problems. So all the key elements that were in the baseline. Next, we have a section on health and well-being. And this actually section, we received several comments, and we are now working, as you can see some orange points here, we are now working to see whether we can expand this section a bit, but without blowing it up too much. So it's still a bargain. We know there are a lot of important things, but we know that we cannot allow too much things back in to really keep the questionnaire relatively short. And then we have a short section on members of the household and on respondents' parents. Of course, no historical information collected, just the update on living arrangements, on contact with parents, and so forth. The final sections are related to economic activity. So we have the update on economic and education of the respondent. As said, for those employed, details on of work arrangements. The same questions, exactly the same items are repeated for the partner if the respondent is in the relationship. And we close with a few basic questions on the material situation. So this is the overall structure, the way it is ordered at the moment. It is still work in progress, of course, but we are hoping there will not be many big changes into the overall structure. There are a few more remarks that I need to share, not two. First, as much as I stressed that it was not our mandate to add any new content, we took the liberty in two cases. First, we decided that in the post-COVID reality, the items on home office just have to be updated. And you see the suggested wording on the screen now. Moreover, we were struggling hard with the income items that are problematic for various reasons, and finally suggested to keep the household income only. And in order to get some information on respondents' income relative to the one of the partner, of course, for those in relationship, we added a FREDA-inspired item that you can see also on the screen at the moment, but that means that the actual personal income information is not there. As you can see, this is something that also was commented now, and we will be looking into this issue as into some other issues. And I just wanted also to mention just three more that were brought up by the consortium board members. Basically, as you could see, the orange print already indicated some of the comments from our partners, but these three topics I would like to explicitly mention. First, some colleagues noticed that it would be great to have more items related on leaving or even returning to parental home, as well as more information on living apart together relationships. While we totally agree that these are very important topics, there are various technical reasons for which we doubt it will be possible to expand information on these topics in the follow-up questionnaire. However, please remember that there is still a call for user modules coming. I will get to it in a second. It was also commented by our colleagues that we seem to be short of some items related to support exchange between generations. And this is something that we will be looking into in the next days. These items are in different sections at the moment, so we need to carefully revise them to make sure that we really have not missed anything. So as you can see, this is really an ongoing work. The questionnaire task force will be now working in the next couple of weeks to verify the feasibility of bringing the suggested items back. We can't promise we'll manage to bring everything back. As said, there were some good reasons for removing some of the items. I will be to all of you who commented, who sent your feedback to us, I will be coming back in person, but also we will prepare the overall material. Olga Grunwald, who unfortunately could not join us today, she's in the meeting in Geneva. She is working very hard to make sure that we really document our process of developing the follow-up questionnaire in details, and all this will be made available to everybody. So we continue working on the content. At the same time, Central Hub got busy with the first coding of the questionnaire. And once the both roads of work are completed, at least in the first attempt, we will make the draft questionnaire available to all of you, to all the user community. And we honestly hope it will be by the end of this year. And when this is, when the questionnaire is publicly available, we will also be able to announce the call for user modules. And I am actually very happy to announce that the steering committee invited Brianna, Letizia, and Martin to join the committee that will be working on this call, and all of them kindly accepted this invitation. I will be involved with this work partly as a representative of the questionnaire task force, but also since this is also linked to the new GGP 5D project. So there is more work ahead. There is even more work ahead next year, lots of testing. We plan basically spend the whole half a year next year on testing of the questionnaire in different ways. So we honestly hope you will keep supporting us in these endeavors. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Monika, for that. It was very hard work that the questionnaire task force was facing, and it had to be a bit of ruthless approach. And I think the task force had clearly delivered on that. But let me open up for questions. So a reminding to colleagues, you can either post them in the Q&A, or you can also indicate that you would like to ask a question, and then we can allow you to ask live your questions. So please don't hesitate. And in the meantime, I'll pick up one question that was in the Q&A, and it comes from our Austrian colleague, Norbert, who comes back to the attitude question, Monika, that saying here that if they're critical life event, it could be that attitude can change, and dropping them therefore could be quite critical. So what was the thinking of the task force regarding that?
Before I react, Lynn, would it be possible also to promote maybe the three remaining members of the task force, so they can also support me? If I don't manage to answer the questions correctly, I would count on Detlef's, Laurent, and Susanna's support. So sorry, guys, for bringing you also, calling you to the floor, but we had a deal that they would support me in case I run into troubles. Norbert, thank you so much for this question. I mean, each and every discussion was very tough. Each and every decision to delete something, to skip something was extremely, extremely difficult. With the attitudes, it was really based, first of all, on the experiences from the first round of data collection. So the first wave and the second wave and the third wave, where it was possible from the old, so to speak, GGS. The attitudinal items do not show much variance over the 3 years period. Moreover, we have also some problems with some of the items. I'm not saying with all of the items, but some of those items that we use at the moment, they in general also show little variance within the countries. So for instance, some of the gender-related items, the gender attitudes-related items that were, for us, we thought were most valuable, they actually show little variance within the countries. So whereas they are very useful for any cross-country comparisons, their utility for the wave 2 is less relevant. I am aware it's a difficult decision. When we present the documents that back up some of our choices, we will also make sure that we do include some of the information, some of the data. But these were the two main reasons. But by all means, I can now see Susanna. We could see Laurent for a moment. Detlef is here. If any of you has anything to add, by all means, do support me with any comments. Yeah, Detlef actually reminds me that we are still considering, there are 2 items on attitudes towards employment of mothers and fathers. How many hours a week should a mother of a small child or a father of a small child work? These were the items that we really thought, these were the items that showed some decent variance, so to speak, and these were the items that we were considering to include. At the moment, they are not in the draft that we presented to the consortium board, but we do still have them, so to speak, on the base. So these are the 2 that might get back into the questionnaire. I can.
Yeah, there's a question from Isabella, also from Austria. And I think that will be a nice link with saying a bit more maybe about the user module, because her question is if there's any new innovative question that will be included, for example, related to the crisis in Ukraine or the rise in the cost of living. So maybe you can say a few things about what this new call for module / question will be.
Yeah. We announced a couple of times already that it is coming, but nobody really knows what's coming. And actually this, I'm not really at liberty to share much details, because actually this new committee is just being established. So I don't want to jump ahead of myself and say what will be done before even talking to the rest of the committee. But still, the general framework is already there. In general, we want to open the floor to any GGS users to introduce their own items or short, but really, really short modules. We will have probably about 5, maybe 7 minutes space, so to speak, in the follow-up questionnaire, which actually is not that little, because that means we could incorporate 40 short items. That means we could incorporate a couple of proposals from different partners. We will be announcing, as said, hopefully by the end of the year, the call with very clear guidelines on what is expected, how it is expected, when it is expected, how it will be selected, and so on and so forth. And we do hope that these modules, these new items, these new suggestions will be also covering those very important issues that Isabella is mentioning now. And they will be, of course, incorporated into the Wave 2 questionnaire. So the questionnaire, so actually, sorry, the structure that you've seen, I actually should have also added that at the moment we are closing with the material situation, but it is actually also quite possible that we will have 1 or 2 short modules following this material situation based on the proposals from the community.
So while Monika says she's not at liberty to disclose more, I am, or at least I'm taking the liberty for it. And I would say here that the spirit is really, it's on 2 things. One is on the innovation, which new scientific avenues of research, and really to make the GGP very relevant. So I think the example that you were giving, Isabella, are really good. It's also, we have though to remember that this is in the follow-up questionnaire. Therefore, items, question, mini module that would expand on the longitudinal dimension of the questionnaire, that will also be really important. And I think we use the word module, but I think it will be very clear in the call that proposing single items would also be welcome. It could be that it's 2 or 3 questions that would really open up a new avenue of research, that would bring new lights on something. And again, I think the committee will be welcoming that type of proposal. But that's again to be decided further by the committee, but stay tuned for that.
I may just add that we want to wait with this call till the moment the follow-up questionnaire is really publicly available, because we want to make sure that you know what you are suggesting to complement. And importantly, we need to remember that any proposals that come from the users need to be possibly easy to incorporate. So we will not be able to include any items that would totally blow up the structure of the questionnaire. So we will also be asking any proponents of the new modules to really reflect on it, to really see how the questions that they are proposing, as Anne said, it can be a single item, but if it's a single item, it needs to fit nicely with what there is already in the follow-up questionnaire.
colleagues, more questions, comments to Monika? Maybe Monika, one question now is, you mentioned that members of the consortium board had the opportunity to provide feedback. Is the audience today will also be given the opportunity to provide feedback? What's the planning there?
Basically, at the moment, you know only the overall shape of it. We did not want to share a semi-product with the whole community. We didn't want to give to the community something that is really a construction field rather than the ready product. Once it is available publicly, of course, we are always very open to any comments. I've mentioned that we have, most of you probably know, we have now the new ongoing GGP 5D project related to the setting up the GGP as the research infrastructure in the European research area. And one part of this proposal is also to work on getting the community more involved. So we will also be working on some events, on some consultations, on getting you involved more into the testing of the questionnaire. It can't be that we will be only the ones to be blamed for any problems with it. I would be happy to share some blame with others. But seriously, the more we test the questionnaire, I'm talking obvious, the more we test the questionnaire, the more eyes look at it, the more people search for some small or large problems, the better. We will be really working very hard to make sure that we react to all your comments. So even if there is some good reason for not following your advice, we will try to make sure, we will do our best to make sure that you understand why is it so.
Thank you, Monika, for that. Anybody else in the audience would like to ask a question, either live or in writing? If not, I wonder if the other members of the task force have any reaction, comments, or insight they would like to share. Let's see, there's one question here from Wojtek. So Lynn, maybe you can let Wojtek ask his question. Is it working? Yes.
Hi. Oh. Actually, me on the Wojtek.
That's not Wojtek.
So this is Arike.
If it has been discussed or...
Arike, you're breaking.
Your internet is bad, Arike.
Decided already whether country-specific questions or only the same ones that...
Can you...
countries had in the...
Arike, we couldn't hear you at all. I'm guessing it had something to do with the country-specific questions, but...
let me type it then.
No.
Can you hear me or not?
Now we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I was wondering if you've already discussed whether we allow country-specific questions again, or whole modules like the Nordic module, and if so, only if the country had that question in wave 1, or new ones, or yes.
We have not discussed it. I actually was not sure whether this is at all even our mandate to decide on it.
So maybe the central
and yeah. Maybe I can let you react. I have a feeling that we will never get rid totally of the country-specific items, but I'm not sure what the policy is going to be with the follow-up now.
we'll need to discuss indeed with the consortium board about that. But I think if this is something that is quite crucial, especially for a funder, I think we would need really to include them. But I think where we got it slightly wrong, if I may use that term in the baseline, is that some of the country-specific questions, there were way too many. And this is where we will ask everybody to be very self-disciplined and include only the crucial one that the funder would want to see. Otherwise, we're going to go totally against the spirit of the questionnaire task force having shortened the questionnaire. But then if we bring back as much content, then we will be back to with a very long questionnaire. So, but the specificity of it will still have to be figured out. So that's a good question. Are there, Laurent, Detlev, Susanna, any of you would like to comment on something? No?
I think Monika has basically answered everything perfectly as far as I'm concerned. The question regarding the attitudes, I think that was indeed something that we have debated also within the task force, and our reaction was maybe we could keep one or two items that have worked well, but not more, because the distribution was just bad, and we should rather in the long run try to develop new attitudinal questions that have more variance and that work better and that do not seem outdated as much as the old ones we have been using. So that's something for a future round of data collection. Maybe one thought on Isabella's remark on the war in Ukraine and rising costs of living. I generally think that a panel or data collection as GGS has trouble to collect data on events like that, because we are taking months of preparing the questionnaire, of testing, of programming, and then again, various countries will field this GGS data collection at different points of time. So we do not even know whether there will still be a war in Ukraine when, I don't know, country X is fielding this survey. So my recommendation would be not to insert questions on something that's occurring right now and that seems highly interesting right now, but we do not know what the future next year will bring and whether our questions that we are developing now will then be of interest at all.
Well, this will be discussed by the committee.
another fun committee.
Yeah, exactly. Laurent, you would like to share something?
Just a word first to thank all the members of the consortium board or the users who already sent comments. So this will offer us the occasion to, as Monika said, to offer a new version of the questionnaire from which some user-suggested modules could be added. Maybe another avenue would be, and I strongly agree that country-specific questions, if they are, must be and remain very limited in numbers, but they could also be shared by the community, as it's much better to have a small group of additional questions which may be not country but region specific for a couple of countries. So of course we have to be very strict on trying to limit as much as possible the number of these sort of non-core modules or questions. But on the other hand, I think it's very important to share our experience and to try to have something in between complete standard and country specific for some items.
Which gets us back to the issue of getting more involved and with improving our information flow in general. It's not only about communication, but it's about exchange of ideas also within the community. I just wanted one thing that I wanted to add, actually not for the follow-up questionnaire, but also we are aware that there are some things that we are repeating in the follow-up questionnaire only because they were asked that way in the baseline. So we are aware that in some cases we are kind of not following the huge mistakes, because if there was any huge mistake, it would have been deleted already some time ago, but there are some things that could be done better. We are not making any huge improvements at the moment. We are really trying, by definition, we tried very hard not to deviate from the baseline in cases where the question is repeated. At the same time, we keep track of all those discussions. So we also have a separate file saying to be discussed with the next round of data collection. So all this discussion and all this work also will not be lost. It will come back at some point. I'm sorry, because I see also Eleonora.
Yeah, there's one, I'll take one last question, and it's from Eleonora. So Lynn, if you can simply ask, allow her to ask a question.
Leonora, you're muted at the moment. Could you unmute?
Eccomi. Here I am. Hi everyone. I was wondering if there is something connected in the second wave with changes due to COVID. For instance, the intentions of fertility expressed in the wave 1, if they changed, and if there's something connected with COVID, or I was thinking about occupation, or the I just say the intentions in their conception as they were expressed in wave 1, and as they changed or not, and if it's due to COVID or not. Thank you.
We do, of course, repeat the item on intentions. So we will know what the fertility intention was at wave 1. We will have exactly the same item related to fertility intentions repeated at wave 2. So there is no direct question about the change. So we are not asking, has your intention changed, as some of the studies done in the past, but we do have the 2 points in time, the measure of intentions. We will not, unfortunately, know whether it was due to COVID. Maybe something for the user module, precisely, to maybe ask explicitly for the reasons of changing or not fulfilling of the fertility intentions. But of course, we will have all the information on the economic activity at wave 1, at wave 2, and all other background information. So some of the things could be derived from the data available, but there is no direct self-reported question, I've changed the intention because of COVID.
Okay, colleagues, in view of time, I'd like to big thank to Monika for this presentation, but also thank to Laurent, Detlev, Susanna for all of your hard work, and Olga for also supporting this work, and your student also, Monika. And on that, thank you for attending. We will stop now the recording, but if some of you want to stay and have continue the discussion with the questionnaire task force with Monika, we will keep this Zoom on for another 10 minutes or so. So on that, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time with another webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.